Happy Friday, everyone. Welcome back to another episode of Barham Engines. So, what have we got going on in today's video? First of all, by unpopular opinion by you, the viewers, we decided not to really get involved with too many sort of different advertisements on here. Paid promotions, etc., especially which were very unpopular with you guys, the ones that had nothing to do with even the industry that we're in. So we took an executive decision not to bother with those, but we have took on one, and the reason is because we think this is a very handy bit of kit, really, and that is this little baby here. So we're going to be doing a review on that today, guys. Also, we have got an update on the MGB engine. So yesterday we had an independent inspector come in to inspect the engine, really to get like a third opinion on it and see what he thinks. We have got the second half of the VR6 build from Paul. So let's get out in the workshop and run you through what we got. We'd just like to say a massive thank you to today's sponsor, Carly. So this adapter, along with the Carly app, is perfect for anyone that wants to diagnose or erase fault codes on their vehicle or unlock hidden features, which we're going to be doing here today on Paul's E91 BMW Touring Diesel. Now, if we plug in the adapter into the car's OBD port, right, so we'll open up the app, Paul, and today we're going to be checking see if there's any hidden features in the coding, right. And we're also going to be doing fault checks, see if there's any faults in your vehicle here, Paul. We've opened up the app here, we've selected your vehicle, and we're going to connect. There we go, and we're in. So if we go diagnostics first, we'll show the results there, and it shows you up here we've got one issue with the dynamic stability control. Nice. So you can go in there, have a look at that, read the description of what that error is. It gives you the fault code up the top there, and if you enter the Smart Mechanic, this will give you a better description of what it is.
That's actually very handy.
It can give you the possible error causes, the symptoms of the error, and the codes down here that it's give you. So if we go back there, and then any hidden features, so here it will tell you vehicle status bad. Apparently it shows you your mileage and how many issues you've got. And then if we go into coding, check coding possibilities, say for instance if we went into the anti-theft alarm system, now it shows you what is on and what is off. So you've got the panic alarm off, alarm with high beams off, so you could have the alarm going off with the lights flashing.
Yeah, alarm with warning lights.
Yeah, locking and comfort functions. Yes. And then you can also have live data. Yeah. So with the car running, you can go into live data and access any of these and see the parameters running live. So if we go into engine temperature, for instance, go in there, start monitoring. See the engine temperature in live data.
So it's been sat up for a few hours, so it's probably about right.
Yeah. Yeah. Very good. There you go, guys. Awesome product. We're certainly going to be using ours, but if you are interested in purchasing one of those, check out the link in the description below to get your 15% off. And we just want to thank Carly for today's sponsor.
Right, so time and procedure. So I'll grab a light. You can see, so there's a tooth here, slightly, it's got more of a point on the end. So that tooth has to line up with the join on that main cap. I don't know if you can see that properly. So this, I can't really point very well. So that's lined up, which means that we're on TDC, on number 1 over here. So I've got this, I've loosely put this time chain guide in, and then this bottom chain tensioner fits into here. And here's Ray, here he is. Right, so we have the bottom part of the engine timed up now. So obviously this is a bottom chain. So this is the distributor drive, and obviously that is the crankshaft. So we've got our tensioner in, which we've taken the plunger out. And these, obviously the distributor and the crank had to be timed up together. So there's a line here and a little arrow on the cog that has to be lined up. And then if I grab a torch, you can see in the crankshaft there's a slightly, I don't know if I can try and get it in the focus, there's a very, it's like a sort of a chamfer or more of a pointed tooth on the end of that crankshaft that has to line up with the line in this main cap. And we've got enough tension on the chain here. Obviously this is a spring-loaded tensioner, it's all pressure fed, but it turns over lovely, so all fine and dandy. So the next step now will be to get the top timing chain guides in, get the chain sort of around the cog, and then we'll put the cover on. Right, so now we need to get the front cover on. So I've put the two timing chain guides on, and I've just put the chain loosely around the sprocket, mainly because when you've got the front cover on, you can't really get these in. So I'm going to put some sealant on the cover because it doesn't have a gasket. Just going to clean this surface out a tiny bit, we'll just give it a wipe down at least, and then we'll put the cover on, and then we can think about putting a gasket and bolting head down.
So, an update on the MGB engine. I know we missed it out in the last video and you've all probably been waiting to see what the conclusion is. Now yesterday we had an independent engineer turn up to inspect the engine bits and give us his opinion. The main reason I got the inspector in, and we've had him in before, is to sometimes with scenarios like this where it could be one thing, it could be other, it could be a combination. We like to get him in. It's a third party opinion on what he thinks, because sometimes you can get tied up with sort of battling from to and fro. Not that we're trying to get out of anything, of course, but having dealt with the garage that is doing the job, obviously that installed the engine, he came in to have a look and he was adamant it's the rings and whatever. So I said, look, I would rather just get an independent engineer in here to give his opinion. Because obviously he seemed to think that there was nothing. It was nothing to do with this valve, whereas that valve's got to be doing something in my eyes. So I thought I'd get him in, let him have a look. So first of all, this is a sample of the oil. He smelt the oil. He said for 40-50 miles, the oil looked very dark and does smell very fuely, which, having looked at the valve, obviously because the valve's not doing anything on the overrun or under vacuum, it's going to be near enough impossible to get this thing set up. So his opinion was that if the valve isn't working, to set the carb up to get the right mixture with it on idle, when you put your foot down, it's going to be fine while it's on idle, but as soon as you put your foot down and this valve closes, then it's going to be over fueling, and that's what he seems to think. Now the rings, bear in mind, for 50 miles, these rings do feel sharp, which is another sign of it overfueling, and he seemed to think that the bores were slightly glazed. He did notice, obviously, what the garage was going on about with these uneven sort of wearing of the rings. That is true, so they do look a bit odd. I mean, I would expect to see, we see this ring here where you've got part black, part sort of polished. You've got the leading edge on the bottom of the ring there, which obviously, as it beds in, it sort of travels further and further up the ring. So that's what I would expect to see fairly evenly. Although it is fairly early days, it may be our argument that it's not the rings. It may have something to do with it. The engineer said, yes, that valve is not going to be helping, and certainly on the overrun, it's going to be sucking up crankcase vapours, and if there's oil in there, it's going to suck down the oil. Although it's fairly clean in the inlet manifold, the gaskets that go onto the cylinder head from here do look oily round, so it's definitely had oil going in. But he said it could be a combination of the two. So you've got, if there's something wrong here, he said have a look at the dipstick, have a look at the length of the dipstick, make sure there's not too much oil in, because on the early MGs he said that they basically lengthened the length of the dipstick to put less oil in it, because there was too much oil, and the oil was getting pushed up round the breather, which is over here, and sort of gathering up oil in here, and then obviously it was sucking it up through there into the engine, which is going to give the same sort of oil burning symptoms. So he said really it's one of them, isn't it? it could be a combination of the two, you don't know. In the meantime, the last couple of days I've spoke to the customer. He's very, very reasonable, and he said initially the garage want to have they would like to have the car back with the engine in bits. They will more willingly put it back together. He'll sign something saying that, you know, we're no longer responsible for the warranty and the garage will sort it and blah de blah. But I've spoke to him yesterday and I'm not happy to do that. I don't feel comfortable with it. It's only really because the garage have sort of got a bit of their knickers in the twist about these rings. There's never been any argument on our behalf. We want to sort the engine out. The customer's paid us for an engine build, and we want to make sure it's right. You know, we just want to make sure that the car's running right and everything that we've done is right. So I would much prefer it if we just, you know, put it together and let it go out like that, really. And even if it costs us a few more quid at the end of the day, that's how I want to do it. I do not want to let the engine go out in bits. So that's what we're going to do. We're going to go over and check the bores. If the bores need boring, then we shall do that. If not, then we shall deglaze it, put a set of rings in, do whatever's necessary really to make it right. And obviously buy either new pistons or new rings. So that's the progress report on the MG.
Right, so that is the front cover on. I had to do a little bit of jiggery pokery, so I had to take this off again. I actually had to take the rear main sill out because the way the housing fits on, you can't really get the sill on, sorry, get the cover on with the sill in, so I had to take the sill out unfortunately, but we can just put that back in once the engine's off the stand. So just slid the gasket on and we're nearly ready to put the head on. So this guide actually slots in and out. This guide sits on this guy can't come off, but this guy can just slots in, so you can actually take this guide off like that, which makes life a lot easier. Right, so the cylinder head is now on. I've loosely put the nuts and the washers, or the washer on, and loosely put nuts on. I've lubed all the nuts up, so obviously lube the thread up and lube up under the nut as well with the LRP lube. We need to go to 80 foot-pounds, but we also need to follow the manufacturer sequence. So the original manufacturer sequence is 40 foot-pounds, 40 newton meters, 60 newton meters plus 90 degrees. So what I've done is I converted to 40 and 60 newton meters to 29 foot-pounds and 44 foot-pounds. And then I'm going to do 65 foot-pounds and then 80 foot-pounds. So I'm still following the 4-stage sequence, and I'm going to still follow the actual bolt pattern, or the nut pattern as such. Right, so for a minute I'm just going to nip these down. They're all just going to give a very tight nip, just so it sort of seats head slightly, and then we will start our torque sequence. Right, so the head's bolted down, up to 80 foot-pounds following the torque sequence. Happy with that. I've gone around and double checked all the bolts, also the nuts, they're all tight. So one thing I like to do before I assemble the engine, or time the engine up, and one thing you can do with this engine in particular is put the cams in without the followers. Make sure the cams turn by hand. So I've bolted these down, torqued these cam caps down, and you can turn this by hand, and this one as well. So obviously there's enough room to spin this cam without it hitting the valve retainer, or valve spin retainer. So they spin lovely. What you can find is certain cylinder heads, or more shallow cylinder heads, if it's been overheated, the head can also, the whole head can bow almost. So you can have a problem where you put the cam in and the cam can rock. So when you bolt the thing down, or bolt the cam in, the cam doesn't turn, which is obviously very bad. So yeah, really happy with that. So the next thing to do is to bleed the followers. So we've got hydraulic followers. So I've got a new set of hydraulic followers here. With new followers, you should bleed them as well. They do come with some oil. So that one, you can't really press down. These two are bled already. You can press these in. So you want to bleed oil all out of these. So we're done 2, we've got a few more to go. So the followers are squeezed out, so I'll put them in the head now. So we're going to stick the cams in, so a little bit of oil on the surface of the followers and the cam journals. No. So that one.
I know.
Going there.
One way.
Right, so that's the engine pretty much timed up. These sprockets are tightened up to 100 Newton meters. We've set the engine to TDC, so when obviously you have this rear cover on, you're not going to be able to see this timing mark here. So there's a timing mark on this front pulley, which I don't know if you can see there. So that timing mark there. And then these cams, the slots at the back had to line up. There's a locking bar that sits in here between these two cams. So that all lines up. So this engine's all in time now. So all we've got to do now is to put this front cover on. So obviously the bottom chain is tensioned already. So to tension this top part of the chain, we have to bolt this top cover on, and then this manual tensioner screws into this hole here, which pushes against this guide here and tensions the chain. So all we've got to do is bolt that on, and then we'll turn the engine over again, 2-3 revolutions, and make sure it's still in time. Right, so that's the engine timed up. All the cams obviously bolted down, these cogs obviously tight. I've just turned the engine over 2-3 times, lined the bottom pulley up and lined these slots in the cams. They all line up perfect, so obviously it's a special locking bar that fits in here. Obviously there's a little timing mark on the end of this pulley, because obviously when this plate is on, you can't see the timing mark there. So this turns over nicely. So turns over by one hand. So I'm happy with that. So the next sort of steps really, obviously I'll get this rocker cover on, and then just start sort of bolting ancillaries on, got the water pump, distributor, well it hasn't got a distributor, it's got a blank there. The oil pump housing essentially, so just auxiliary bits really. I'm not going to bother film that, that's all fairly straightforward. Another hour or two's work and it'll be done, it can go back to the customer, so I'm happy with this one. It's a little bit different to what I've done before. I've never built a VR6 and it's a strange looking engine to work on, but actually it's not a bad little design.
Well, once again, thank you very much for watching today's episode, guys. We've got a good one coming Monday, so don't forget to tune in. Thank you very much to Carly, today's sponsor. If you are interested in that Carly product, guys, please click on the link in the description below and put in the code Bareham Engines to get your 15% off until the 15th of March. Thanks very much, guys. Until Monday, have a great weekend. We'll see you then. Cheers.